If your suspension is starting to feel a bit squishy or feel like you have less control with your driving, these front strut and spring assemblies with the rear shocks and sway bar end links are an affordable solution to combat that in your 2014 through 2018 four-wheel drive Sierra 1500, excluding the Denali models. Now this kit is a factory style replacement, great for the Sierra owner who's looking for a direct bolt-in swap for most of their suspension, whether if it's damaged, worn, or you want to return your truck to stock for a more comfortable factory style ride. Now these are really ideal for the daily driver and light off-roader in search of comfort out of their suspension and wants an upgrade without the high ticket price tag. Now this kit features the front struts, rear shocks, and sway bar end links, which are all responsible for your feel while you're driving and the responsiveness that you get out of your suspension, whether you're on or even off-road. Now with this set, you can expect a softer factory style feel for a smooth ride, more controlled body roll compared to your worn setup that you're currently working with, and controlled dampening to reduce vibration, bounciness, or any chatter that you may be getting. Now that's mostly thanks to the refresh in the bushings, the springs, and the hydraulic shock being responsive but not being overly stiff like a higher performance off-road style shock, promoting a cushioned feel while you're driving. Now this entire kit has an OE design. It mimics the factory components to a T, and it's all made of a steel build. So you have a steel spring to replace the tired OE one, steel shocks and struts for solid durability, and tough steel sway bar end link. Now everything, or mostly everything in the kit, is also powder coated for solid rust resistance over time. The shocks and struts also include a high rigid steel piston rod to resist damage and wear, and to help that as well as resist any leaking, these also include rubber boots over the strut shaft as well as steel boots over the shock shaft to help keep debris and dirt out. Now all of the bushings are also refreshed with a rubber construction, very similar to the factory setup. They are going to offer more of a responsive feel compared to the factory ones, as well as a quiet operation when mounted up. This set here is about $500, which is very affordable for a full set like this. Now, most other options include only one replacement shock or strut in the kit, or separated front and rear. As where this is a full shock, strut, and sway bar end link replacement for a total revive on the Sierra's suspension, so you're not gonna really have to question when putting components together. It's also a factory style replacement, so you're not getting anything too fancy here, which keeps the price down and allows you to keep the same ride that you originally had out of your Sierra. Now install here does require a little bit of experience, so I'm giving this a 2 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter. It's taking at least 4 hours or so with the right tools and setup. I also highly recommend an alignment after installing this for the proper component wear and performance for your truck. However, at this point, I'm going to hand it over to one of our installers here. They're going to show you a detailed breakdown on how this bolts up to your Sierra. So that's going to wrap it up for what I have to say. Let's get into the install.
For this install, you need a 3/8 impact and ratchet, 1/4 inch ratchet, 10, 21, 15, and 13 millimeter socket, pry bar, 21, 18, and 15 millimeter wrench, clip removal tool, a ball joint tool, and also not shown be a lift and pull jack. All right, today we're going to be installing some front struts and shocks on our Sierra. First, we'll watch a quick video how to uninstall the stock parts, then we'll come back here to install the new ones.
So now for the front, we're going to start off by removing our brake line and ABS brackets. We have a 10 millimeter bolt on each, so I'm using a 10 millimeter socket to remove them. Now I'm just going to pop that bracket out of the way, throw my bolt back in that hole. I do the same thing up here. Next, I'm going to remove our sway bar end link. So I've got a 15 millimeter socket on the bolt and a 15 millimeter wrench on the nut. Now you can pull that nut and that bushing off. Now that bushing's pretty stuck in there, so I'm just going to take a clip remover tool, pry up on it to get that to pop free. And then we'll remove our bolt and slide our end link out of there. Next, we're going to loosen up the nut on our upper ball joint. So I've got an 18 millimeter ratcheting wrench that I'm going to use to remove this. Then we're just gonna leave that a few threads on. Now to get access to get a tool in there to pop the upper ball joint, we are gonna have to rotate the knuckle. So what I'm gonna do is remove our outer tie rod here. That way we can turn this. So I'm taking a 21mm socket to remove this nut. And if that starts spinning, we can get a 21mm ratcheting wrench and a 10mm socket to hold the stud. And it looks like it is starting to spin, so we will have to do that. So now I'm gonna grab a 21mm ratcheting wrench to loosen up this nut. And I've got a 10mm socket on my ratchet. The ratchet is in the tightening position, so that it'll be opposite of the nut that we're trying to remove. And you can remove your tools, thread your nut the rest of the way off, and pull your tie rod out. And now that we can turn the knuckle, I can slide my ball joint tool into place. And I'm just gonna start tightening this bolt to push onto the stud. And then I'm gonna grab a 19mm socket and tighten this down. I'm gonna keep my hands away from this because once this pops, it can go flying. And then I'm just gonna fully remove my nut here and separate my upper ball joint. So now we're on to just removing our strut. I'm gonna start at the bottom here. We've got these two 15mm bolts that we need to remove. Once we pop those off, we are gonna have to pop these clips off to transfer over to our new strut. So I'm gonna start with a 15mm socket to remove my bolts. And now with those bolts out of there, I'm just taking a clip remover tool just to get underneath the clip, pop that off. I'll do the same thing on this side. And now finally, we'll go up top. We've got to remove our 3 upper strut nuts. Now there should be a clip for this harness on each stud here. It looks like ours got a little twisted up, so we have one that should be on one. But once again, I'm just gonna take a clip remover tool and just pop these off of those studs. And then once you have those popped free, you can take an 18mm ratcheting wrench and remove your nuts. I'll twist that the rest of the way off by hand, and then just do the same thing for the other 2. And now just get a hand on your strut, and we're just gonna slide this out through the gap in the lower control arm. So the first thing we need to do is disconnect our shock from our lower mount. We've got a 21mm bolt and nut. So I'm taking a 21mm swivel socket on the bolt side and a 21mm wrench on the nut side to pull this out. I've got a pole jack underneath the axle just to support the weight and help line up the bolt to slide it out easier. And then with that tension on the axle, our bolt will just slide right out. And now we can remove the bolt from our upper shock mount right next to the spare tire. This is gonna be a 21mm bolt, so I'm using that same 21mm swivel socket. And then you can remove your bolt and wiggle that out of the top mount.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get our new strut in place. Slide it up through here. Get everything lined up. You can just let that rest on our lower control arm. All right, so now we're gonna get our bolts through our bottom. Now there is an option to reuse the factory clips and bolts. A lot of times those rust out, so they supplied with new nuts and bolts. So we're gonna get our bolts up through the bottom. Spread on our nuts. Do the same thing for the other side. And we can go ahead and tighten this down. This is gonna be our impact and 13mm socket for the head and a 15mm wrench to hold the nut. We have our 3 supplied nuts up top, so we're gonna thread them on our studs. And then we have our 15mm ratcheting wrench that we'll go ahead and tighten these down with. Now, since these studs are a little bit different, our wiring harness is not gonna secure back down. So that's just gonna hang out up there. You can zip tie it away if you want, but they're really fine up there. That tight. So you can get that, but it's not gonna secure on that well. But let's just get these other two on. And our last one back here. All right, now we'll get our upper control arm back into our knuckle. Just lift that up, set that down. Now if we need to, we can grab the pry bar, just go under our spring here. Just give us some leverage to get that in place and get our nut threaded on. All right. I do just need to put our tie rod back in just so we can tighten this down, just so it doesn't rotate on us. So let's throw that in there, thread the nut back on, grab our 18mm ratcheting wrench and tighten down our ball joint. Looks like we might be spinning a little bit, so I'm just gonna put some tension on that to keep that from spinning. That's nice and tight. While we're here, we can also re-secure our brackets for our ABS line and brake line. So we'll take our two 10mm bolts out, put our brackets back in place, thread our bolts in, grab our ratchet, 10mm socket, tighten those two down. All right, so we have our nut already threaded on, so we're gonna grab our 21mm ratcheting wrench and ratchet and 10mm socket, tighten that down. The last thing we have is our new sway bar link. So we have our bolt with one washer and our bushing at the bottom. Put that through, and we're gonna have another bushing with a washer. Our spacer in the middle, and then we're gonna go another washer and bushing. Make sure that it's facing like so, so it pushes up against the sway bar. Push that up. One more bushing and washer, and then our nut up top. Now this is all 15mm hardware, just like the factory one. So we'll grab our impact 15mm socket and a 15mm wrench and tighten this down. Now once you have this side all put back together, you can go to repeat all those same steps on the other side of the truck. All right, so now in the rear with our new shock, we're gonna get our top bolt up in place and just loosely installed. We'll get our bottom one in, and then we can tighten everything down. All right, so we'll get our bottom bolt in place. Thread on our nut, and we'll grab our impact 21mm socket and 21mm wrench. Tighten this down. And we just need to tighten our top bolt down. All right, so impact and 21mm socket, and tighten our top one down. Now once the shock is all secured, go ahead and repeat the same steps for the other side. And that wraps up our install of our front strut and spring assemblies with rear shocks and sway bar links for our 2014-18 four-wheel drive Sierra 1500, excluding the Denali. And remember, for everything Sierra, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.